I caught my husband cheating with our son's fiancée a few days ago. It hurts to even write it. It still doesn't feel real to me. I don't understand how they could do this, knowing the devastation it would cause to the entire family. My son had been in a relationship with his girlfriend for 3 years. I thought she was a wonderful match for him, and they got along very well. She is 24 years old, while my son is 26. He is our only child. I am 45 years old and my husband is 49. Our relationship was like any other couple's, with its share of ups and downs, but nothing too serious. We didn't have an extremely active sex life, but it wasn't completely lacking either. We had sex at least once a week. When my son proposed to his girlfriend, I was thrilled for him, and they were looking forward to planning their wedding and starting a family. One day I left work early on a time, which was quite unusual for me. When I arrived home, I noticed that my husband's work truck was in the driveway. As I approached the front door, I heard faint music playing from inside the house. Normally I would have just called out to ask who was home and request them to lower the music. However, as I traced the source of the music, I made a shocking and unfortunate discovery. I found my husband with my son's fiancée in a compromising situation. It felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, and I was so stunned that I couldn't even speak. They didn't notice me at first, but when they did, they panicked. She tried to cover herself, while my husband didn't know how to react and didn't even attempt to cover himself. In a daze, I turned around and left the house. I must have been in a state of shock, because I don't even remember how I managed to get back in my car and drove to the nearest CVS. I couldn't bring myself to stick around and demand an explanation. In situations like this, no one can predict how they'll react. Like most people, I thought I would be really angry and lose control. Instead, it felt like I was watching everything from outside my own body. I guess everything happens for a reason. I had never left work in the middle of the day before. If I hadn't caught them, I would still be living a lie. It's hard to believe that this will be my last memory of him. I told my son about what I saw, and he confronted his fiancée. I don't want to describe the details of what I witnessed to him. It's extremely difficult to talk about, to say the least. It won't bring any good. Luckily, my son broke up with this girl immediately. He doesn't want to come back to our house and says he'll never talk to his father again. We've been married for 27 years, and I thought we had a strong relationship. I had no clue that anything was going on, and neither did my son. There were no obvious signs of attraction between my husband and this girl when we were all together. My husband's behavior didn't change, and he was always where he was supposed to be at home. I didn't notice anything because they were meeting in our house during the day when no one was supposed to be there. He doesn't have an explanation for why he did this and hurt his wife and son. He's unable to justify his actions. He says it was just a sexual affair and they have no desire to be together. Is this a midlife crisis? He's 49 years old and she's 24. I informed her parents about the situation, and they are rightfully disgusted. I've also told all my family and in-laws. Everyone is advising me to get a divorce, except for his mother. She hopes I can find a way to forgive him. I understand that the right thing to do is to get a divorce, but it's still painful to let go of our shared history. It all seems like a lie now. He's gone. I asked him to leave last night. He went to a cousin's house about 40 minutes away. He's called me several times since then, but I'm not ready to talk to him. 2 of my cousins came over last night, and it was comforting to have a girls' night in with them. It was very last minute, but I'm grateful that they dropped everything to be with me. My son is fueled by pure anger right now. He's blocked his ex-girlfriend in every way possible. He's personally informed our family, as well as his closest friends. Several kids he's known since preschool are fully supporting him. His friends have reached out to check on me, and even their parents, whom I'm not particularly close with, have called to offer their support. I'm overwhelmed by all the support we're receiving. As for his grandmother, my son isn't upset with her. He understands that she's an 83-year-old woman who doesn't want to see the family break apart. Honestly, she's a kind woman but tends to avoid conflicts. I will be consulting with a lawyer this week. There's no way to get through this without losing my son. I don't want to discover more than I already have. I've firmly decided to get a divorce, and learning about the full extent of this affair and any other affairs from the past won't benefit me. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their words of encouragement and support. I can't begin to explain how much it means to me. My husband has tried calling my son, but my son refuses to talk to him. My son did send him a text saying that he's dead to him and never wants to hear from his father again. When I told my son that I'm filing for divorce, he became emotional and said, "I can't imagine having to lose both my parents." That hit me harder than catching my husband cheating. Fortunately, it was over the phone. I would have completely broken down if it had been in person. My son has always been a strong young man, not wanting to show weakness. Hearing that he thought he might lose me, his mother shattered my heart. He's my only child, and he means more to me than anything in this world. I'm here for him, and I'm not going anywhere. My son's two closest friends have been staying at his apartment since this all happened. They don't want to leave him alone. I wish I had more kids, but these two friends have been like brothers to him for 21 years now. A co-worker recommended a lawyer she used when divorcing her cheating husband. When I told the lawyer what had happened, her jaw literally dropped. She's committed to doing everything she can to ensure that I come out on top in the divorce. I've always been financially independent, maintained my own savings, and have a healthy retirement account. So I'm not worried about my financial future. What's painful is having to let go of this house I've called home for the last 20 years. I thought it would be my forever home. Even if I end up with a house in the divorce, I can't imagine staying here. I'm utterly exhausted. It doesn't feel real to me, and the thought that I might wake up from a nightmare is what gets me through each day. My husband keeps leaving voicemails and sending texts, saying he wants to talk, but I'm not ready for that yet. I can't thank all of you enough, even though I keep repeating it. I hear what you're all saying, but part of me really wants to know why he did this. I have so many questions. How did it start? When did it start? How long has it been going on? How could he justify doing this to our son? Did he really think they would never get caught? Did he not think about the devastation it would cause? How could he violate our home in this way? I hope you won't think I'm crazy for wanting answers. I told my son that I plan to ask questions, and if there's anything in particular he'd like to know. He said he doesn't care to know about it, and nothing either of them could say would change what's happened. He's not upset that I want answers, but he also doesn't want me to share what I find out. I'm going to text my husband, so I've written proof in case I need it for the divorce. I understand what everyone is saying, but I still needed answers for my own peace of mind. His ability to answer my questions won't impact my decision to divorce. I emailed him a few questions, and he responded within an hour without making excuses for himself. He said there's no explanation for hurting his family to this extent, and he admitted he wasn't thinking at all. He never thought they would get caught, and he didn't think it would last as long as it did. He claimed it was just a physical relationship, with no emotional involvement. He also mentioned that he's not seeing her anymore, but that doesn't really matter. He's aware that he's lost us. He said this started last July, when both my son and I were away for a weekend. She called him in the afternoon, saying she wanted to use our pool. He mentioned that she showed up after dark with a bottle of wine. They drank the wine, went for a nighttime swim, and had an intimate encounter in the pool. She stayed the night, and they were intimate several more times before she left the next day. They would meet for intimate encounters 2 or 3 times a week during their lunch hours. They both worked near each other, and he would pick her up and bring her back to our house. He claims that he never initiated contact with her. She was always the one making plans. There were also several occasions when they called in sick from work and spent the day in motel rooms. I caught them in the act, so I have to live with that distressing image for the rest of my life. I'm not putting too much trust in his story. I'm sure there's some truth to it, but I expected him to present himself as helpless in the situation. Learning about the extent of their intimacy felt like a painful reminder of the day I found out. I had no inkling that anything was going on, no suspicions at all. It's challenging, but I make sure to eat every day. I'm able to sleep at night, and I spend a lot of time with family and friends. I don't want to be alone. I'm also trying to stay focused at work. I check in on my son every day, but he has his own life, and I don't want to overwhelm him. I know he's eating, spending time with his friends, and exercising a lot. I've encouraged him to talk to me about anything that's bothering him, but he mentioned that it feels strange to discuss some of it with his mother, which I understand. I offered to pay for counseling if he wants to talk to a professional, but he's not ready for that just yet. It's particularly tough for my son because he developed a strong bond with my husband through exercise, and now, exercise serves as a way for him to cope with his emotions. They accomplished an Ironman triathlon together, ran 2 marathons together, and regularly went to the gym as a team. I don't plan to ask many more questions, if any at all. I understand that I'll never get the complete truth, and I wish I could erase the image of them together from my mind. When I told her mother about the situation, she was left speechless and seemed unwilling to accept it. I haven't heard from her since I told her, and I have no desire to speak to her mother or anyone from her family again. My son's ex-fiancée's parents don't have a healthy marriage. It's evident that her husband doesn't hold much respect for her, and she has put herself in a situation where she relies on him for financial support. I'm sure all of this has influenced my son's ex-fiancée and her outlook on life. At the moment, I'm not ready for counseling or any type of therapy. It's all still too fresh for me to open up to a complete stranger in real life about this disaster. I'm focusing on work and spending time with family and friends because it serves as a distraction. I'm aware that it might not be the healthiest way to avoid truly processing and dealing with the affair, but it's what I need right now to get through each day. I really want to ask if my husband has cheated in the past, just to confirm whether my entire marriage was a lie. Deep down, I already know the answer, but I want to hear it from him. As I've mentioned, when I'm ready, I'll look into counseling. Thank you for the recommendation. Last night, I asked him if he had ever cheated on me in the past, and he admitted that he had cheated with 3 different women during our marriage, in addition to our son's ex-fiancée. His infidelity began shortly after our wedding, when he started an affair with a co-worker, which lasted for 5 years until she moved away. He had a 3-year affair with a woman he met at the gym, and a 2-night stand with another woman he met during the San Diego Marathon, which he attended alone. So, yes, my entire marriage was built on a lie. I did my best to be a good wife and create a home where he felt wanted. I still find it hard to believe that I was deceived throughout our entire marriage. However, I can't bring myself to hate him entirely because he gave me my wonderful son. I'm aware that this is likely just the tip of the iceberg, and there may have been more women involved than he's admitting to, but in the end, discovering more won't change anything. I hope all of this was worth it to him. I will continue to be the best mother I can be and work on rebuilding my life as best I can. I'm fortunate to have a strong support system. I wish I could understand how someone could engage in these actions. What did I do to deserve this? I fear I'll never stop asking myself that question. I hope that my son will be able to trust someone in the future and find himself in a healthy relationship. Thank you to everyone for their ongoing support. I'm taking things one day at a time and hope to finalize the divorce as soon as possible. It appears to be proceeding smoothly, and he's not resisting it at all. My son is doing well. He's focusing on his work and exercise to cope with everything. He's curious about what I saw when I caught them, but I don't want to share those details. I believe it won't help his healing process. He mentioned that he'd consider seeing a counselor if I do, so I'm looking into it. I may not feel fully ready, but I'll start so that he's comfortable speaking to someone as well. Although I have many questions for my husband, I'll refrain from asking them. My marriage is not what I believed it to be, and I need to grieve its end and move forward. I'm not entirely sure how I'm managing it. I'm just taking it one day at a time. I'm worried that if I try to discuss it in a factual and clinical manner, my son might want more details. Also, I don't even want to speak about it out loud, as describing the intimate aspects is embarrassing for me. He hasn't spoken to his ex-fiancée, so there's no chance she could claim there's a misunderstanding. What I saw is undeniable. Thank you to everyone. I've decided that it might be easier for me to put it into words and email it to my son. I let him know I need some time, but he will eventually get the details. He completely understands that this is a difficult process, but he insists he can handle it and doesn't want me to shield him from potential pain. He believes that he needs to know to move on without lingering questions. I no longer feel a range of emotions. It's just a constant feeling of sadness. I'm sad that my entire marriage was built on a lie, and I'm saddened that my son has to go through this devastating experience at a young age. Strangely, I even find myself feeling sorry for my soon-to-be ex-husband. He's made a mess of things. I can't comprehend how he can look at himself in the mirror. Thank you to everyone for your thoughts and words of encouragement. I've been quite occupied with family visiting for the holidays and preparing for Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow. For the time being, I've pushed these thoughts aside. My son is off from work this week, and he's spending a lot of time helping me around the house and catching up with our family. He'll also be spending time with his younger cousins, who look up to him. All I can do is try to enjoy and focus on the positive things and people in my life. Ruminating on the mess they created won't achieve anything. We're both grateful to be surrounded by supportive family and friends during the holiday. I needed a break from my family. I even pretended to have a headache just to get a few minutes to myself. I know they mean well, but the concerned looks and hesitations are starting to bother me. I can't handle the pity. Tomorrow will be better. I'm going shopping with several female relatives. These ladies will be charging through Macy's, and I'm sure they'll forget to worry about me for a while. He texted me last night to wish us a happy Thanksgiving, and even though I didn't reply, it managed to cast a shadow on the night and lingered in my thoughts today. I chose not to share this with anyone because I didn't want to spoil our shopping trip. I eventually texted him back, stating that the only communication we should have is through our lawyers, and I have no interest in hearing from him otherwise. He didn't respond to my message. I'm doing my best to cope with this situation, and I believe I will be all right. However, I'm feeling sad and a bit apprehensive about the idea of being alone for the rest of my life. I didn't expect to start over at my age. Looking back, in retrospect, I can't recall any instances of inappropriate or questionable behavior between my husband and my son's ex-fiancée. I never observed any flirting, touching, or anything that would suggest they were involved with each other. My husband always seemed devoted to our family. I'm truly baffled by how someone can lead such a deceptive double life. It's very disturbing. I understand that I'll never fully comprehend how their affair began, or why they allowed it to continue. I simply have to cut my losses and move forward. Regarding the reader comment, you have a valid point. He's staying at their home because I asked him to leave. I'm not sure if the cousin and his wife know about the situation, and it's a complicated and delicate matter. His behavior is indeed concerning, and I can only hope he'll find his way and establish healthier boundaries in the future. After that passionate response on your behalf, what would I do? I would suggest to her, the wife of your husband's cousin, that your husband's behavior is utterly disrespectful and completely unacceptable, especially since they've allowed him to live in their home. It's way beyond what's tolerable. Unless his cousin is also his best friend, in which case you might want to consider her husband's role in this situation. He should be told to find his own place to live, even if it means in a less comfortable environment. Alternatively, he could live with the woman he was involved with at the gym. What an insensitive individual. As for the original poster, I didn't inquire about why your husband is still at their place, or if they plan to ask him to leave. Frankly, it's not my concern, and I'm no longer involved in this situation. If you wish to continue your friendship with her, you may need to establish clear boundaries. It's evident that there was no ill intent on her part, and she's equally disgusted and shocked by your husband's ongoing behavior. I know she feels deep sympathy for your son. Your husband's actions are despicable, to say the least. It seems he's not using his brain. Instead, his impulses guide him. I'm glad to hear that your son is doing well and even received a promotion at work. It's unclear what he's experiencing internally, but he seems to be showing his usual self. He's planning to start counseling after the holidays. He shared a version of his past infidelities, but it's highly unlikely to be a complete and accurate account. He probably engaged with many more women during our marriage than he's admitting to. I'm afraid to even contemplate the actual number. Fortunately, both you and your son had clean STD tests. It's a good idea for both of you to get tested again in a few months to be sure. I'm beginning to realize that he might also be a narcissist. I used to think his interest in fitness was primarily about maintaining his health, but now I suspect he's more concerned with looking good. I was completely shocked when I witnessed them, and I couldn't say or process anything in the moment. I don't even recall how I managed to leave the house and drive away. I still haven't gone back into the room where I caught them, and I didn't allow any of my visiting family members to enter that room. It's difficult to stop thinking about the incident, but I will explore EMDR therapy, as many people have suggested. They probably have no idea about the pain they've caused. They seem completely selfish and focused on their own pleasure. Thankfully, they weren't in our bed, which provides some small comfort. I don't feel as alone knowing that others have been through very similar situations. As for your question, I'd like to know how others dealt with their husbands doing this in their homes as well. It's truly perplexing to understand how someone could engage in such behavior at home, especially with a child present. How long did it take for them to feel comfortable being at home again? Regarding the reader comment, I can only imagine how traumatic that must have been for you. It's a painful memory that must be difficult to forget. In a melancholic sense, ending my first marriage was a more straightforward process. There was no need for overthinking, persistent doubts, or difficult decisions. It was a definite conclusion, it was finished, and the divorce proceeded swiftly without lengthy discussions. It was a clean break, no questions asked. Now, in my second marriage, attempting reconciliation is challenging. It's painful, causing hurt, and it has left me in a state of confusion for years. In contrast, a complete and definitive ending would be much simpler. I know I couldn't endure living with the betrayal. I remained in this marriage because I lacked concrete proof of the affair, but deep down there's no doubt in my mind. It's an entirely different and more complex situation that I'm dealing with now. Reader, comment. I called my wayward husband to check if he had finished work. When he answered, his phone was on, but I strangely didn't say anything. It took a full minute to realize that his phone had accidentally answered itself in his pocket, and I found myself unintentionally eavesdropping on him being intimate with someone else. I agree. It was like an out-of-body experience. I was in the car at the time and drove to his workplace. I stood outside, knowing they were inside. When I finally knocked on the door and he answered, I was at a loss for words. I simply said, "You cheating bastard," turned and left. At that point, he had no idea what was happening. Original poster. Similarly, he was in a state of panic with an erection. I will never forget that image. Isn't it remarkable how we can sense that something is wrong in the moment, but don't react as we typically would? I came home and heard music playing, but I didn't vocalize anything. I just went to the source. Normally, I would have called out and asked who was at home and requested the music volume to be lowered. Reader, comment. I didn't catch them in the act, but I did discover a video of them engaged in intimate acts. In reality, it should be referred to as acts because it consisted of 5 different scenes edited into a 13-minute video that my wayward wife had hidden on a CD in her bureau dresser. When I saw it, I felt so disgusted that I vomited. I confronted my WWW, and she initially denied any wrongdoing until I mentioned that I had a copy of the video. None of the intimate scenes were filmed in our house. The explicit content left no room for minimizing the situation. Each scene concluded with an orgasm for the other man, or my WW making any attempts at minimizing completely irrelevant. Original poster. I'm truly sorry for the experiences you've been through. There's truly nothing a wayward spouse can say once they've been caught in such a way. No one can truly grasp the horror and the irreversibility of discovering a WS in the act. There's no coming back from it. Apologies become meaningless. It's quite pathetic that a WS and their affair partner would even attempt to downplay the situation in that moment. It appears that most of you had suspicions that something was amiss and followed your instincts to investigate. I, on the other hand, had no inkling that anything was going on. I stumbled upon the truth by accident, and I was completely unaware of the state of my marriage. I really can't comprehend why a wayward spouse would say, "It's not what you think or I can explain." It's precisely what we think because we've witnessed it firsthand, and there's no plausible explanation for their actions. I'm sorry for everyone who has had to catch their US in the act, but I'm glad to hear that you were able to cope with it successfully through therapy and counseling. I'm left wondering how many other women he may have brought into our home. The thought is truly terrifying. Am I the only one who believes that adults shouldn't have Facebook? It initially began as a platform for college students, and perhaps should have remained that way. I don't have a profile, and I fail to see the appeal of it. I keep in touch with the people who truly matter to me through phone calls and emails, especially if they're too far away for regular in-person visits. All I ever seem to hear about is how Facebook causes relationship problems. As part of the divorce, I will be receiving the house, and I'm seriously contemplating selling it. I can't bring myself to enter the room where I caught them, and I don't feel comfortable being in touch with them. I'm not really in this house alone. It's just me now, and I don't really need this house. It would make more sense for me to downsize to a condo and start fresh. I always thought this house would remain in our family, but it's just another dream that has been shattered.